Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. Our hearts and minds are with the young soldiers who fought courageously and gave their lives to the State of Israel. Let us begin with Hatikva.
Yishaberach Avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, v'imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah. Hu yivarech et chayalei tzava Hagana Yisrael, ha'omdim al mishmar artzenu, ve'arei Eloheinu migvul halevanon, ve'ad midbar Mitzrayim, umin hayam hagadol ad lavo ha'arava, Vayabasha, Va'avir, Uvayam. Yiten Adonai et oivenu, Hakamim aleinu, Nigafim lifnehem. Hakadosh Baruch Hu yishmor v'yatzil et chayalenu, Mikol tzara v'tzuka, Mikol nega umachala. V'yishlach bracha v'hatzlacha, B'chol ma'aseh yadehem. Yadber sonenu tachtenu, v'yit arem beketer Yeshua, uve'ateret nitzachon, v'yukam bahem hakatuv, ki Adonai Elohechem, haholech imachem, lehilachem lechem im oivechem, lehoshia etchem, v'nomar amen. Eternal One, who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Bless the fighters of Israel's defense force who stand guard over our land and the cities of our God, from the border of the Lebanon to the desert of Egypt, and from the great sea unto the approach of the Arava, on the land, in the air, and on the sea. May Adonai cause the enemies who rise up against us to be struck down before them. May the Holy One of blessing preserve and rescue our fighting men and women from every trouble and distress, and from every plague and illness. And may God send blessing and success in their every endeavor. May God lead our enemies under their sway, and may God grant them salvation and crown them with victory. And may there be fulfilled for them the verse, for it is Adonai your God who goes with you to battle your enemies for you to save you. Shomer Yisrael, protector of Israel, protect the hostages that they may soon be returned to their families and their homes. Watch over all the inhabitants of Israel. Protect and bestow upon them peace of mind and security of body. Say unto them as Moses said to Joshua, Chazak ve'amatz, be strong and of good courage, for Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel is an eternal people. And let us respond, Amen. Please now watch this special message for Israel Bonds investors and supporters worldwide from Israel's President Isaac Herzog.
Dear brothers and sisters from all over the world, I'm broadcasting to you from the President's residence in Yerushalayim. 8 decades ago, the Jewish people experienced the worst of human cruelty. From the ashes, we stood on our feet, fought with everything we had, and created something wonderful, incredible, the State of Israel, a national home for the Jewish people, the State of Israel. World Jewry was there from the beginning, and so many other friends, with wide open hearts and an age-old call of Kol Israel Arevim Ze Lazeh. Jews from around the world came forward to be part of the story that is Israel. In those critical early years, Israel Bonds served as a primary organ of the Jewish people in building the basic infrastructure of our young country. And it is no surprise that it is there for us now, helping mobilize world Jewry in immediate and urgent action for the State of Israel. I applaud Israel Bonds, and I applaud each of you, each and every one of you who is stepping forward to do your part to help our people in this critical hour. I encourage all of you to continue supporting Israel through Israel Bonds and through every other mean. I specifically want to thank Danny Naveh, Israel Bonds President and CEO, Howard Goldstein, Chairman of the U.S. and International Boards, and Dr. Andrew Hutter, Vice Chairman and Co-Chair of the National Medical Division. Dear brothers and sisters, the battle we are fighting is not only Israel's. Throughout the globe, we are seeing the poison of Jew hatred spread once again. It is robbing Jews of their sense of safety and exposing the close link between Israel hatred and Jew hatred. Let me state clearly, the State of Israel will not passively accept a reality of global anti-Semitism. We and I personally are working closely with world leaders to ensure that Jews everywhere are protected and that Jew hatred is called out for what it is and denounced swiftly and fully. So, dear friends, last week I met a fighter who had been seriously injured fighting for our people on the 7th of October. From his hospital bed in Ashkelon, he had a message for us all. He said, "We are an eternal people, and we are not afraid of a long path. No one can keep us down because that is who we are." So correct. It is that fighter and that remarkably strong spirit of Israel that I meet everywhere in Israel, everywhere, which is an ultimate reminder of the unbeatable spirit of our people. Around the globe, we stand united and we stand firm. We will persevere and overcome and prevail, and we shall be there stronger together. Am Yisrael Chai, thank you very much, dear Israel Bonds members and friends and supporters.
Thank you, President Herzog. Dear friends, I'm Israel Bonds President and CEO. My name is Danny Naveh. And I have to say that I feel that we are moving from catastrophe to revival. From the ashes of the babies Hamas burned alive, the elderly they tortured, the girl they raped and kidnapped, the victims of the most vicious attack the world has witnessed since Nazi Germany. And we have moved today to initiatives and revival. As we speak, our brave soldiers have been fighting back powerfully and effectively. But let's not be mistaken. This is not just a war between Israel and the Hamas terrorist organization. This is a war against those who wish to annihilate the Jewish people, a war against those who seek to destroy the Jewish state. This is a war between all of us, Jews and non-Jews, and the enemies of humanity and civilization. And I have no doubt we will win this important war. When people ask me, what is a correct proportional response? I say, the same proportional military measures the free world took to reach Hitler's bunker in Berlin to dismantle his regime. Dear friends, the state of Israel will overcome all hurdles. And at this important time in history, the Jewish communities around the world demonstrate enormous support for Israel. As of that dark Saturday, on October 7th, we initiated a special campaign to support the state of Israel at war. And I'm so proud to announce that since the war began, Israel Bonds has raised hundreds of millions of dollars worldwide of investment for the state of Israel, which has come from thousands of Israel supporters around the globe. And I call upon each and every one of you who has not yet purchased Israel bonds. If you are in the United States, Canada, or Europe, you can go on israelbonds.com today and purchase a bond, which is the best way to show your support for the people of Israel, and the most effective means to help the Israeli government with the resources they need right now. Israel Bonds stand strong with the state of Israel and its people. And now I would like to introduce you to a very special guest, Mr. Yossi Cohen, who from 2016 to 2021 served as the director of the Mossad, Israel's National Intelligence Agency. While in that role, he orchestrated one of the Mossad's most daring operations, the seizure of the Iranian secret nuclear archive. Mr. Cohen also led the negotiations between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain in what led to the Abraham Accords and the normalization of relations between the countries. Prior of his position as the director of the Mossad, he was Israel's national security advisor and head of the National Security Council. In May of 2021, Cohen was presented with the George Tenet Award in recognition of his steadfast partnership with the CIA during his tenure as director of the Mossad. Yossi, it's a great pleasure and honor to have you here today with us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Danny, and thank you very much for everything you do. I mean, your huge contribution as the president of Israel Bonds is a great effort that you run there. Is highly appreciated here in Israel. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen from Tel Aviv today. Have to admit that tonight, thank God, I mean, I'm looking outside from my window here. It looks quite quiet, but it's absolutely not quiet in the entire country these days after what has happened. As the president referred to that, and as Mr. Nave referred to that, we are in the midst of a very, very tough and deadly war. I'm sure that we shall prevail, and I'm sure that the Jewish spirit will win, but these days are very hard. I would like to start with your permission, ladies and gentlemen, with the very dark days that have ignited, they've initiated the entire event that we call the Shabbat HaShchora, or the second Shabbat HaShchora in our Jewish history, the 7th of October, almost a month ago. First, I have to admit that like all other Israelis, like my friends, my colleagues from the army and from other services in Israel, I was tremendously shocked. I think that what has happened will be should be deeply investigated by us. All services, the army, the military, the intelligence, everybody has to ask themselves, I mean, an immediate questions about how did all these atrocities that's happened to us, not ready, not prepared, not welcoming the threats that we have learned for so many years. I know that this kind of investigation will take place after the war will be ended with a great victory for the state of Israel. But I refer to that immediately because I know that some of the questions that I received from the audience around the world, from my colleagues and ex-colleagues, counterparts from different organizations, I mean, people that I know, national security advisors or head of the security services are asking me, Yossi, please tell us how come? I mean, you're so sophisticated, you're so aware, you're so modernized, you live in such a modernized environment in Israel entirely, or maybe specifically in our military and military intelligence. How come this terrible thing has happened to us? And I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, because you have to know as well that we will be always in a position in Israel to guard and to make our utmost to keep our people of Israel and the Jewish people all over in the diaspora absolutely safe. But this will have to be investigated, as I said, after the war. Well, us and Hamas, I think, is a long, long lasting and deadly story that has started some dozens of years ago in the point that we have met for the first time Hamas treaty. Everyone that had a chance, I mean, the last days, I mean, people are doing it even more often than before, to look at the Hamas treaty. What does it say? And what brings them into the position that they will be so evil, like the worst that we've ever met, worse than the Nazis, some would say, or maybe equivalent to what were the atrocities made by the Nazis, not in the capacity, but the habits that they practiced. Hamas treaty declares openly to the annihilation of the state of Israel and declares openly again that all means are at their capacity capable to be used, or every means that they want to use will be used if they need to. It takes an order, like a kind of a fatwa, like a Muslim order from their clerics and spiritual leaders, that they can use everything to annihilate or to destroy the state of Israel. That includes using atrocities against babies, kids, women, men, doing everything that they want to do in order to destroy our beautiful country. We are eventually, inside our organizations and my previous jobs, we are absolutely aware of that. But what we've tried to do in the last, I believe, 15 years or so, we've tried to live together with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and with the Palestinian Authority in Gaza Strip altogether. So to create a kind of a atmosphere that will be constructive, that will be human, that will be something that would allow us Israelis and Palestinians from the other side of the border living together, to live together. Unfortunately, all these tryings were failed, completely failed. And now we see, unfortunately, this is the biggest lesson, that because of what they had been learning in kindergartens, because of what the kids of Gaza Strip or Hamas all over has been treated and educated in their schools, high schools, and universities, because of his terrible education that they have received for so long time, for so many years, brings them to behave the way they did against us all over the years, and in a huge capacity with a dramatic impact on October the 7th. Unfortunately, and I was part of it, these types of trying living together, what we call the coexistence in between Hamas next door to our beautiful settlements in Israel, everything that we've tried failed completely. Not for so long time ago, 20,000 workers entered daily to Israel. Hundreds of trucks supporting their popularity inside Gaza Strip were crossing either the southern passage from Egypt or the western ones from Israel to Gaza Strip, trying to build a kind of a coexistence, trying to build a kind of a positive things for both nations. It failed, it collapsed, it crashed completely on October the 7th, and I'm here to declare what has happened will not happen again. What was the situation with the Gazan people will never be the situation from now onwards. I know that it brings a lot of casualties on our side. I am today part of the hostages headquarters, something that is not officially connected to the government of Israel. It is an absolutely NGO. It works eventually to enhance the big hug that these very, very poor families, very, I would say, heated, horned families that are living in a terrible situation these days, we will treat them better. We will give them what they need. And my objections and my rule in this kind of meetings that are run with the headquarters of the hostages is to explain what is it that has happened, what do we do next. Of course, I mean, I don't really have answers right now for that. As I said, it has to be investigated sometime in the future, but more than that, I'm explaining what the country of Israel is doing majorly and intensively to bring all hostages back home. The youngest hostage that we have in Gaza Strip is a baby of 9 months of age. Very young baby. I mean, to the mothers and fathers, to the grandfathers and grandmothers among us, I mean, we know what does it mean to have a baby at that age in such a place, in such a terrible place in Gaza Strip. Nevertheless, the Hamas is holding him, Kfir, that's his name, as a hostage. So my role with the headquarters of the hostages is to explain what is the national effort that is being made, that is, as we speak, on the run to bring all hostages back home. I have to admit, I had a meeting with them today for about 2.5 hours. You have to listen to the stories. We want to listen to the stories. And their stories are heartbreaking. I mean, you can't really explain. You can't really stand in front of a mother or in front of a father that his wife and 3 kids are there in Gaza Street being kidnapped, and that they're part of the list of a very, very terrible list of hostages being held by terror organizations. There's nothing much that you can say. Nevertheless, we're there to help, we're there to support, and we're there to tell them that Israel will do its utmost to make sure that all hostages in an immediate time will come back home. The other thing is that I have to, I want to mention here tonight is, it is tonight in Israel, it's not for you, is that we live in Israel, a kind of an Israeli campaign that is explaining to the world what we've gone through, or what we are going through already in the past and in the coming days. I don't think that we'll find an immediate solution for these kind of hostages, and it has to be absolutely and brutally explained outside to every community or to every Jewish community. It's easy to explain it within our own Jewish people, but it's hard to explain it within Arab nations or even the Western countries like in Europe or in the Southeast Asia. But this is what we do, because when you watch an Israeli television, even if I do that, I mean, for a few hours a day, you really get connected to the Israeli cause. You really understand what has happened to us. But when you go abroad, and I do, within the days of war, in order to try to solve the hostages problem together with other strategic issues that I'm dealing with in the name of the Israeli government, you don't really see the atrocities the way we do. And this has to be campaigned so strongly outside of the state of Israel that no one will have any doubt about the right of existence to our country and what have they done to us on October 7th before letting us explain what is the target of our war, what is the mission of our soldiers coming into Gaza Strip, and what are we willing to achieve trying to keep the almost impossible equation of humanity for their expenses. So what I'm trying to tell you here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is that the Israeli or the Jewish campaign, by you too, I'm doing it, the entire country is dealing with it, has to be eventually communicated strongly by you as much as you can, telling them your personal stories, telling them our personal stories, telling them, showing them the atrocities that Hamas eventually has conducted at this terrible time of this Shabbat, that Shabbat of October 7th. I am trying to be part of fighting anti-Semitism around the world for the last, I believe, 20 or 30 years. I know that these days in the USA, but not only the USA, anti-Semitism and anti-Israelism is growing dramatically. I mean, you suffer from this one back home in the USA or elsewhere in the places that you live. We see that from here, but all what you see, all this anti-Semitism, all this anti-Israeli campaign that is running outside in these countries has a kind of an unfair, but telling unfair is probably not enough to describe what I see it is not describing our part. It is not describing what we suffered from. It is not describing, again, the atrocities. And I'm telling you, this is so important that we will push back, that we will counter dramatically, openly, without being either afraid or worried about their reaction. I mean, the world's reaction about what we do, and that we have the right to defend ourselves, and the state of Israel eventually will defend itself against Hamas or against anyone else that is willing or not willing immediately to join the war. I'm saying willing or not willing immediately because one of the questions that I receive oftenly is, are we going to see another front with Hezbollah these days? Are we going to have more of what we see in the south, in the north? And this is a very good question. And what I'm telling to my counterparts in the army and my people that I know around the world, I tell them the last thing that Israel should do is guessing. You should not guess, because you have to be very modest when you read and digest intelligence. And I'm not sure that the intelligence picture that we see today is absolutely accurate to the point that we can estimate what's going on, that we can evaluate Nasrallah's wishes for his people and to counter the state of Israel accordingly. So I can tell you that even tonight, yes, the Jewish spirit is there. Our soldiers, officers are fighting with all the Jewish spirit that they need to recruit, like to their existing spirit when they enter the very dangerous territory of Gaza these days. And I'm sure that we all can trust. We can all trust the Israeli army, that we all love and support with all our heart, and to wish them, like the rabbi, have blessed them with a great, great, great victory. And I'm sure that we can, as long as we have been, and we should be, super determined on these fightings inside Gaza Strip and conducting the war in a very, very determined way. Your contribution by buying bonds and by being such a beautiful community or international community to the state of Israel is unprecedented, and I cherish all what you do for the state of Israel all the days, and especially these days. I mean, Danny and I, we know each other for about, what do we say, Danny, 55 years or so. And I know that his contribution and the team that he's working with is super, super contributed to the bonds. Mr. Howard Goldstein, Mr. Larry Olschwanger, Dr. Andy Otter, and of course, a gentleman that I know for such a long time, Mr. Zavik Rubinstein, who I know for the visits in New York and in the NGA and stuff like that from the past. So I thank you all very much for what you do, and I thank you all very much for the huge contribution to the state of Israel. I think that tonight it should be declared, even in between us, but outside of this room, all over the world, I mean, the entire world will hear what we have to say. The situation that we had suffered so far in between us and the Hamas, in between us and Gaza people, is not going to be the situation from now on. The game that we knew, or the game that we have learned, is not going to be the game and the play that we will play from now on. It's going to be a different reality for the sake of the Jewish people, for the sake of the state of Israel, and not less for the sake of these settlers, of these people that are living 2 kilometers, 1.5 kilometers away from the Gazan border. This message has to go all the way down to the sellers, all the way down to the tunnels that Yahya Sinwar, the butcher of Hamas, the commanders of Hamas, is like hiding from us today. He has to hear this voice from me, from you. We're coming to get you. We will smoke you out, and we will retaliate the life of thousands of Israelis, babies, women, kids, families, mother, fathers, grandmothers and grandfathers that have been butchered and kidnapped by you. I wish that tonight, not only with your wonderful contribution to the country, but more than that, with the spirit that will go out of these rooms that you're in, that the state of Israel, with your help, will prevail. I'm sure that we shall overcome. The days are hard. On a personal note, within less than 3 weeks, I have lost 2 cousins in the war. One was buried on the second day of the war, was killed, I'm sorry, on the second day of the war. The other one was killed 2.5 days ago, and yesterday we buried him in the mountains of Jerusalem with a very, very holy ceremony that lasted for hours and ended with the song Hatikva, when everybody of us got extremely emotional, knowing that him, like his brothers and father, that was eventually victim to a terror attack and was killed by them too, that his contribution and his sacrifice was worthwhile doing for the country. And this is the message. No one shall think, no one should believe that the State of Israel eventually will fold its flags and will go back to Europe or to Warsaw. This is not the case. We are here to stay, and we're here to stay forever. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words. I have a question. I'm Debbie Janoff from Metro New Jersey, and I'd like to ask, how do you view the participation of countries such as Qatar, Kuwait, and Oman in this conflict, even though they don't have official treaties with Israel?
Part of my professions from the past was to conduct relationship with countries that do not carry official treaties or official diplomatic relationship with the State of Israel. I mean, this is what I did. This is what the Mossad is doing for many decades. And by the way, it was mentioned by, I believe, by your president, Mr. Dani Naveh. Eskemei Avraham, as we call it, the Abraham Accords, were eventually the final accord of a very long process that we have conducted with these countries to make sure that a peace treaty would be possible with them. So this is what we do. This is what I did, according to 4 reports. I visited many times these countries in order to conduct this kind of discreet relationship, making sure that they will one day come forward with a complete peace treaty. Qatar today is the most effective negotiator, mitigator between us and Hamas. We have to know that, because I know they suffer a lot of, I would say, criticism from the international arena, even from within the Israeli society. Something that I cannot accept, because this is not the time to criticize the only effective negotiator that we have. If we want to bring any hostage out, any kids, women, men, women soldier out of Gaza Strip today, Qatar is the only one who can do that. And that's why I conduct relationship with them as we speak. I've been in Qatar last week. Probably directors of other services in Israel will go and see them again and again. I know that the American administration is super pushy and super hopeful with the Qataris too. We need them now on board so we can have our hostages home, and the sooner the better.
Hi, this is Glenn Siegel. I'm a national board member and I'm chairperson of the Philly region. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
It's a pleasure, sir.
Thank you. We're all praying for the safe return of the hostages. What do you think is the best course of action to bring our hostages home?
I would say, Glenn, that there are 3 methods that we're using. The most visual one that you see, I mean, the one that you see practically working is through our negotiations that is being conducted or contributed by our intermediaries of the Israeli side, and of course, as I mentioned, Qatar and Egypt on the Arab world side. This is one method. I know that it is hard to believe, but we do not discuss directly with the kidnappers or with Hamas itself, and we do not negotiate with them. But as I said before, Qatar and Egypt are doing it. So this is one method. The other method is, as you probably saw, special units are working inside Gaza Strip, trying to release hostages in a discreet manner, I would say, in special ops, as we call them in my previous job. This is the second thing that I believe we shall keep on conducting, so to find, if we did, found options and opportunities to release hostages or to free hostages by that method. This is something that we will use. The third method, I believe, would be, as long as the war would go into the deeper part of Gaza, mainly the Gaza city, and if during the war we will find places that we have suspected that hostages have been held there, of course, an operation within the wartime, within the war action, will be as well conducted. I have to admit that all three methods that I've mentioned are practical and workable, and we're all over trying to get as many hostages as we can with these three methods.
Thank you, Yossi Cohen, for joining us for this highly important briefing this afternoon. Your words are insightful, they bring us confidence, and it's very helpful to us all as Israel and Jews around the world are coming together during these dark, dark times that can be very difficult to understand. Most of us listening today on this program were born after the state of Israel was formed. We are privileged, and with every fiber in our heart and a neshama, we will promise that the Jews sitting on this cast today will never know from what Israel would not ever become. We are here forever, like you had said. You have helped spread some light on the question that have been on all our minds concerning the war following the brutal attacks by Hamas, the toll it has taken on Israel and its citizens, and what we might be expecting in the days, weeks, and months to come. You, Yossi, are our beacon of information, not just for Israel, but for all the Jews in the diaspora. Good afternoon to all of us who have joined us today from around the world. I am Howard Goldstein, Israel Bond's National and International Chairman of the Board. We are truly in unprecedented and historic times. And while we have used that phrase so much lately, it describes what Israel and Jews around the world are experiencing. The devastation after the brutal attacks on Israel by Hamas and the subsequent virulent anti-Semitism felt around the world are unconscionable. The news we see daily is filled with things we have not seen or experienced since World War II. Anti-Semitism following these attacks on Israel is an all-time high. All you have to do is just look down the street in your town. We are also seeing that there are positive stories of survival coming out of Israel, including those of hostages being released and families surviving the attacks. It is unimaginable to even begin to understand what they experienced. While we are not there in person, we watched in horror and held them close into our hearts and prayed for their safety while continuing to do so. They are our heroes. I would now like to introduce a special guest, Commander Shachar Palid, who is in the reserves as commander of the elite paratroopers unit of the Israel Defense Forces. He is the vice president of business development at JIT, a leading Israel cybersecurity company. Prior to JIT, Mr. Palid served as the CEO of an Israeli startup, Eternity, and before that, he represented Israel on various public diplomacy missions in the United States and also in China. Please welcome Commander Shachar Palid, who is currently in the active reserves. He will be joined by Hadar Schumann, along with her beautiful son, Yoav, both miraculous survivors on October 7th, Hamas terrorist attacks on Israel.
Thank you, Howard and Israel Bonds, for having me here today as I speak with Hadar Sherman. We are all very lucky to have her with us today, as she and her husband and 6 children are survivors of the horrible terrorist attack on Israel on October 7th. After about 100 Hamas terrorists infiltrated near us, the kibbutz where she and her family lived. The family was under siege for 14 hours. We will hear her story of survival as I speak with her and ask some questions. Please welcome Hadar Shuman.
Hello,
Hadar,
everybody.
please tell us about yourself, including your background, family, and profession.
I'm Hadar. I'm 40 years old. I'm living in Nahal Oz for 9 years now. I'm married to Ishai, and we have 6 beautiful children. The elder is 15 years old, and the youngest are both twins, almost 4. We really love to live in Nahal Oz when it was quiet as much as it can. I'm a social worker, and I work with communities and with elders, and I'm got back to work right after the horror.
Thank you, Hadar. Could you tell us where you and your family are now? We know you're not in Nahal Oz, and maybe you can share a little bit about your daily life.
Since the night of the 7th in October, the army moved us to a safe place. We are in Mishmar HaEmek in the north of Israel. Most of the kibbutz are there, and we are trying to have a routine as a community. Since then, we have like a kindergarten for several hours at the days, and kind of a school that the youngest goes to, and we all still in very much trauma, so we just trying to be in a normal routine of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and between that we have like a lot of great people that trying to help us and talk with us and come to do shows and everything that we will not think about what happened and trying to reveal ourselves.
Wow, I think it shows 2 opposite things. One is horrible that you had to move your whole life from the south, that is evacuated to the north and start rebuilding your life there until you can go back. But the other side is the togetherness and how people came together to help and do whatever they can to help everyone that was affected by the horrorness of October 7th. Could you maybe describe the events of October 7th from your point of view and experience?
Yes, of course. I guess it will be like confused, so I'm sorry from ahead, but I'm trying to do the best that I can. We woke up at 6 a.m. to sounds of whistles that we never heard before. It was like hundreds of missiles that shoot to the not only to us, to everywhere. And we took our youngest and that sleep with us and moved to the safe room as quickly as we can, close the window and save it. And my husband went right upstairs. We have the 2nd floor, and then my 2 sons slept there, and my son's friends also have been there, and he makes sure that they get inside too, to the safe room we have upstairs. And we were like, for 15 minutes, we're in the situations that we think, oh, it's another round. And then we realize that we hear shooting guns everywhere. And we got a message on the WhatsApp that there are terrorists in the kibbutz, and we need to close our doors and stay inside the safe room. So my husband just ran upstairs, get them all down to us. We were 8 people inside the safe room, and my husband decides that he takes his personal gun and remain outside the safe room door, watch us, and trying to realize what's going on outside. we were,
Understand back then what happened? I mean, you went to the bomb shelter and you saw a text message about a terrorist, but did you understand how big this was?
no, we didn't realize this point, what's happening. Slowly, we started to get messages on the WhatsApp of the kibbutz from people that saying, help us, the terrorists got into our house. Where are the army? Where are everyone? We don't know what to do. And like a message after message. And that's the story that we have inside our kibbutz. But we didn't realize what's happened in the rest of the area. We're trying to realize what we need to do, so we just kept everyone really, really quiet and trying to keep the door closed for a very long time. And my biggest Yoav he held the door for a very long time. So
So it was you and the kids inside the bomb shelter, a small room, and
Yeah.
your oldest just, held the door to make sure the terrorists wouldn't be able to get in if they happened to get in the house. Wow.
Yeah, and my husband bring us a big knife from the kitchen and a bottle of water and a baseball. I forgot the word.
Baseball bat.
Yeah, and that's what we try to keep us safe, to hold the knife and trying to figure out what we're going to do if someone gets in. And my husband doesn't succeed to stop him. And we don't have electricity since 9 a.m. So we can't charge our phones and know what's happened. So, and we don't have air conditioning. So it was really, really smothering. We don't have air, being so many people in such a small room. So
Yeah, in Israel, unlike in the States, sometimes it's still very warm at the end of early October or at the end of September, even now, today. So
yeah,
without air conditioning, with 8 people in a small room, which is a bomb shelter, it gets very tough for so many hours.
we got dizzy and everyone got hungry and thirsty, and we don't have food, and at the start we don't have water. And then every time my husband sounds the birds starting to sing and the shooting are getting lower, he opened the door, let the air come into the safe room, and trying to take the little one to the bathroom, so because they can't help themselves so longer. And we just move to the floor that no one can see us through the windows to the bathroom, and run back immediately.
How long
And
did this whole thing take? How long were you there?
we were total 14 hours.
Wow.
Till
14.
they evacuate us at 10 p.m.
And the terrorists tried to get into your home?
They're trying all the time. They shoot at our house. We heard them all the time talking and shouting in Arabic around our house. We heard them through the safe room window and moving stuff and ring our house. They shoot our balcony that trying to get in, but we got lucky because everything we don't have electricity and it was really early, so the house was closed. So they didn't, even though they shot and ruined everything, they didn't get in.
That's luck. Could you, maybe describe what were you feeling at these hours, being surrounded by your kids and their friends, knowing what's going on because you saw the text messages on WhatsApp, maybe you saw the news a little bit on your phone when you had battery. What went through your mind? What were you feeling?
I were on automat to save our kids and trying to get them not be so afraid, even though it's really normal to be afraid in this situation. But I didn't wanted my youngest to remember that it was our time. I wanted they have an experience of being together and keeping safe one of each other. So this is what I did. I was afraid, but I was determined to save them.
Well, our lives have just changed, and the luck, and it's crazy what happened to you and to so many others. Specifically on this morning, I was in the north where I live, and I was called at around 9 a.m. to go to the base. And ever since I wore this uniform and were near your home, and the Gaza border, and you went to the north near my home, and it's been a month, and it feels like we just got stuck on October 7th. And I wish we could have been stuck on October 6th and prevent this. You told me before this event that your son's friend is the sole survivor of his whole family, that as Israelis, we all heard about this horrific story. Could you maybe try and share their story?
My second son, friend, went to run on this morning at October 7th, and that's what saved him. The terrorist came to the family house and just shoot everyone there, both his parents, two sisters, and his grandpa. And they were such a great family. They were believing in peace and living in a free world, and really people that just wanted to do the best of themselves and the best to the community, the best to the world. And they just shut down the kid when they evacuate us. They put us in like shelter for a while till the buses took us. And then he saw us and he knew that we are good friends. So he asked, maybe you talk to my mom and father. I can't get them. I don't know what happened. And we just didn't know anything, and we didn't know what to tell him because no one got them on phone because they were murdered. And it was really, really difficult to hear that everyone got shot.
Got shivers hearing this story, and he's all alone in the world. I feel like it's just one of thousands of stories that need to be told, and all the support that we can give to him. Are you in touch with him? Is he in the same kibbutz as you now?
No, he's with his aunt at Rishon LeZion, and we're in touch with them because it's really important to him to be with his friends as much as he can. And we have in our kibbutz 13 murdered, and each one of them is a story that we have to keep.
We have to commemorate. Your babysitter you told me about, and many other people from a kibbutz were brutally murdered, while others were kidnapped, and we still don't know how they are, where they are, and whether they're going to come back or not. Do you think that when all of this is over, life at the kibbutz will get back to normal? One day, will you go back there? Do you think it's possible to get back to living in a place where you experienced such a horrible atrocity, and so many of your friends and other people that you lived with are gone?
We have our faith that we will come back, but right now it's really early to say it because we don't feel safe, and no one can tell us right now to get back and everything will be okay after what we experience. So we need to be sure that, like Yossi Cohen said, it will never happen again. And we will come back. Our community is strong, and we are already talking about it, already doing everything to keep us as strong as we can. And we will build our kibbutz, and we will be even better.
Wow. So although everything that happened and so many people saying that it's impossible to go back, you and your kibbutz members and friends and neighbors are still together after everything that's happened, and you believe that soon when this will be safe, you'll be back and rebuild the kibbutz from the ground up and make it even better and bigger. I think it will be the biggest sign of our win, of the win of good versus evil. What do you want?
We
What
will
could
hope so.
Sorry, go on.
No, I'm saying we will hope it will happen.
I can say as soldiers in reserves that we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that this will happen. And after the war, when we're not longer on reserves and we can help and support the civilians, we'll help with whatever we can. As a last question, what would you say to people around the world who are denying that this attack ever happened? Do you want to share a message with all our viewers that's to show them and experience what you feel about what you see?
I really don't have words to these people because we have so much proof. We lived there, we've been there, and so many people have been murdered and kidnapped. And how can they say it's never happened? There are lives that people, our friends, were filmed during they taking back to Gaza and shooting down, and you can say it's never happened. And I really hope that that if I speak now, you hear me and you hear us, and you help us to move this story to the world.
I can tell you that we hear you loud and clear. Is there a last message that you want to share with all the viewers and the great supporters of Israel, people who share their love and support with you and just want to help us, the togetherness of the Israeli people and the Jewish people in Israel and across the globe?
I want to thank them all for being there. We feel every support that we get. And I want to ask you to be with us and give us all the support that you can to rebuild and also to bring back our kidnapped.
Thank you so much, Hadar. And I want to just say quickly, thank you to the Bonds for everything that you do for Israel and for us and the support. I'm sure Hadar feels it, and me as a reserve soldier, I feel it as well. We feel like someone has our back, and we go to sleep knowing that you're with us. So please just keep doing it. It's so important. And with you and together, there is no one that can defeat us. Never again has not been truer than now. So thank you so much. And if you're viewing this, just support the Bonds, because this is a direct way to support us to win in the battlefield and make Israel a safe, a beautiful haven for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hadar, for taking the time to be here with us, especially following the atrocities you and your family endured. And thank you, Commander Shahar Piled, for being here today with us and for speaking with Hadar. As an active reservist, you know firsthand all too well about what is going on in Israel since the war began. Hello, everyone. I'm Larry Olschwanger, chair of the National Campaign Advisory Council at Israel Bonds. There are truly no words to describe what Hadar and her family have experienced and the aftermath they continue to face on a daily basis, along with so many other Israelis, and for that matter, Jews around the world. Their story has brought even more reality to a situation. While far away in distance, it's close to home for us because Israel is in our hearts. We realize it's not easy for Hadar and her family during this time. While it was difficult for Hadar to speak here today, it's so important for the world to know her firsthand experience, and we are so grateful for her telling it. Israel Bonds and I want to be sure to thank all of our supporters, especially during this challenging time for Israel. Now more than ever, I encourage you to stand with Israel through Israel Bonds. Directly after the war began on October 7th, Israel Bonds launched an international campaign to raise funds for the Jewish state during its darkest hour. An investment in Israel Bonds is the most powerful and direct way we can support Israel. We are so grateful to all of you for your support during these tragic times. Please see the following slide to learn more about investing in Israel Bonds now. And thank you for joining us.